everyone. Today, while we continue our 10 days of art, I hope you're having fun so far. I have a dilemma. Just Googling hats and art, you're going to come up with so many great options. Just beautiful. Quick overview. This is Hogarth's Shrimp Girl. And this is approximately painted around 1740 to 45. The reason why it's not pinned down on the date is because he never sold or finished this painting. This is considered an unfinished painting. A seller on the street, these would be like daughters or wives of the fishermen, and they would have this huge plate on top of their hat, and it would have like fish of the day, or like a glass of beer. It would be like buying your lunch off of a street vendor. Interesting backstory, but that's the hat. Anyway, moving on. A beautiful painting by a Scottish artist, Fergusson. A Belgium painter, more recent, 1964. This is Magritte, Magritte, and this is Son of Man. And this is a self-portrait. I think it's an interesting painting because it has inspired a lot of people in different ways. And like one person I know, for instance, was Norman Rockwell, who did a painting called Mr. Apple. And Mr. Apple is directly inspired by the Son of Man. I went to Belgium and went to the museum there, Magritte Museum, and fell in love with his work. You want to learn as much as you can in any way from them. So I love that painting. This is Manet, and Manet was greatly influenced by another artist who I have here, Frans Hals. And I love this portrait. I've done a study of this before. This looks like it would be very simple, but I know it's more complex than you think. All right, so from Manet to Frans Hals, which, like I said, Manet was a great admirer of Frans Hals. We're looking at a time frame around 1624 when he did the Laughing Cavalier. Why Frans Hals is so important, and I love this, the hat, stunning. Frans Hals is important, and I've recently started to do a few more studies of him because my favorite, John Singer Sargent, would tell his students, study Frans Hals. And John Singer Sargent, as a young man at the age of 20, went to Haarlem outside of Amsterdam and stayed a few weeks. We know at that time he did several studies. And I'm going to show you a few because I have a few. One of the paintings that John Singer Sargent loved when he went to do his studies was this one, which is the Regencies of the Old Men's Almshouse. And I'm probably saying some of this wrong, but I'm so sorry. But this was done in 1664. So this, think later in time, John Singer Sargent, he went around the year of 1880. He was around 20 when he signed in and did the studies. And the studies that he did, and this is what I didn't know until I was like researching for some of the information, because I knew he admired Frans Hals, told his students to study Frans Hals, but what I didn't know is that he would look at the composition and study that. He would study, how he handled paint. He would look at all these different techniques to learn from. But how he would do his studies would he'd take a section of the painting and do a study of that detail, which is how I do a practice or study. I also crop part of the painting and do the study. This is John Singer Sargent's study that he kept in his studio till the day he died. And he did this around 1880. He was 24 years old and always kept this in his studio. He didn't do an exact copy line for line, but he, when asked about it, would say he tried to capture the feeling. And one of the things that was noted was admired his brushwork, how fast he moved, because he believed in painting at a fast tempo. And so being decisive and putting down the line. And you can correct things, but I think it's that decisiveness and the quickness of painting, which Manet also commented on when he would study Frans Hals' work. So fascinating. And I'll show you, last year I did a study. So we're going to continue on with showing work of a John Singer Sargent painting. And this is a portrait of this, I think it's the Sitwell family. Usually I write it on the back, but so I think it's the Sitwell family. And so this was the painting I wanted to do a study of. So I blew up a little closer of, oh good, he painted it in 1900, Sitwell. And I did, last year, I did this little study of the children. I just wanted to remember just how they were posed, the lighting, the dark and lights. I love that these artists, Manet and Hals, Sargent, they like black as a color, so do I. And just like a couple months ago, I did a larger, kind of open, not rendered very tightly study. And then again, went closer in the detail of the children. And so like a year apart, I still went back to look at that a little closer. And this is a great technique I would suggest for study, how to practice or study. It's not the end. I think it's the process of practicing art, which is these 10 days of art are so important to establish a habit, and you get to learn maybe about artists that you'd like. We don't need to become these artists, but they have something to teach us. And I definitely learn anytime I do a study, anytime I practice, and I'm always happy to realize that, like John Singer Sargent, for me, he was doing his works 140 years ago, like the El Halio. I love that painting with the dancers and the musicians in the back. It's like 140 years ago. When John Singer Sargent was working and painting, he's making trips to go look in person at the work of people he admires, like Frans Hals, and this is like 1624. That's like 250 years before John Singer Sargent. He's looking at who's directing him, at who's leading him to what he feels. And not that we want to be that artist, but we want to be helped. It's a helping hand and be led and directed. My dilemma, I had all these like great artists, fun to learn a little bit more. I hope you find that interesting. What do I want to paint? And I might paint one, but what this is leading me to do is I wanted to do thumbnail sketches, which is very helpful in my journals, the journals I'm keeping for the 10 days of art. So I might do as fast as I can. You can follow along and be inspired by these artists, or you can, by Googling hats and famous paintings. That's easy. So let's get to our drawings. So the first is our Frans Hals. And I really like this one. My Laughing Cavalier looks a little angry. Hopefully we can make him a little happier looking if I paint him. I hope whoever is related to this shrimp girl is not totally angry at how I've depicted her here, which is not that great. But I think it's always interesting. People think, well, how's that a self-portrait? It is the artist himself, very visible, especially there's an eye, like right to the side of that apple. You can see his eye. I recently did a self-portrait and did just part of the page with my eyes, and then a surreal like element, I guess, like the apple. I put a floating angel on top of my head, and it is a portrait I did for this year, 2022. And it's so obviously me. If you want a exact portrait of an artist, there's always a camera. So I think that's what draws me to art anyway. It's whatever the artist wants. It's correct. Let's see. So let's emphasize that hat just a little bit. I'm not using any colors, so I wish I had like green for that apple, but it is what The interesting thing about doing a thumbnail of something like this image is so much is relied on the colors. And so by doing a little sketch like this, you realize like what kind of information is lines mattering versus color versus value versus, you know, I mean, there's all sorts of good practice that you can get while doing thumbnails. Makes you think a different way. From looking at these thumbnails, it is a great reminder of everything I read and learned about each of these paintings. It maybe helps direct me in picking a painting to paint if I want to study further and learn more about that artist and their technique. And it was really fun. I love this quote that says, "Dwell on the beauty of life. Watch the stars and see yourself running with them." And I think of these artists as the real stars. They really are. And I love that by doing some practice, even a little bit of practice every day, that I can see myself running with them. I hope you had a fun creating of art on your daily efforts here. 10 days of art. And I will see you in the next video. Happy creating.